If you've been curious about living in Redding, but you're not quite sure what neighborhood could fit your lifestyle, well, today is your lucky day because we're going through Northeast Redding. Now, I get a lot of people that move to this area and they're just like, Faith, where is the best neighborhood? Where should I consider based on X, Y, and Z? And I thought instead of just giving this grand overview on a map tour, we should really condense it down to one, section of Redding, really go through how each neighborhood kind of varies in some regards, what lifestyle it gives, also kind of just price point in general. So you can really see over time a difference between the northeast side to the northwest side, etc. If you are new to this channel, I'm Faith Barrett, your local guide to everything here in Redding. We've been on this channel for a little over a year, just exploring and sharing why Redding is such a great place to live or why you should consider it as an option. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, comment below, and like this video as we share weekly updates about Redding and the housing market as a whole. I kind of have here some, houses that I'm going to show you that are currently active on the market. And just to note, these listings that I'm going to show you throughout this map tour are active listings currently right now in the month of September. So depending when you pick up this video and watch it, some of this inventory might be sold or pending, but if you have questions about it, feel free to reach out, especially if there's one that kind of sparks your interest. So let's get on this grand tour together. So before we start this tour, I thought it'd be helpful again to kind of review what is the city of Redding limits, and then you obviously are going to have outskirts of the city of Redding. As we kind of venture into Northeast Redding, there is definitely a border that you start backing up to. So mind you, this is approximate, but this kind of blue line outlines basically Northeast Redding. Now, we've talked about in many episodes that this I-5 and 44 basically divide, the north from the, northwest from the northeast, etc. So basically northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast. So this kind of, divide really helps us, section off certain parts of Redding. So for today's purpose of the video, we're really going to explore Northeast Redding. Now, there is other larger aspects of Redding outside of this kind of city of Redding limits, but this kind of gives you this idea that here's the city of Redding limits. Now, why is this important? Because this means that you're going to be on REU, so Redding Electric Utilities, and anything outside really starts becoming the PG&E world. So Pacific Gas Electric Utility Company. So this red line basically gives you exactly in the city of Redding limits. Now, because you are in the city of Redding, not necessarily will your insurance, fire insurance, that being, be cheaper. Sometimes as we get a little bit more terrain, more outside of, downtown, a working and operating fire station, we can still see those premiums be a little bit higher. So it is something to consider, but overall, if you're going to trade off, maybe a little bit of a higher fire insurance premium, flip side is at least you're on REU for a little bit of a cheaper utility cost than PG&E. And then you kind of might be wondering, okay, well, what's all of this? Well, to keep it simple, this over here is Bella Vista. It's just a different kind of county in our area. And then obviously this kind of, if you kind of imagine, where the city of Redding line was, this was kind of over here. And so all of this is still Redding. It's just the outskirts. So we call it Shasta County essentially. So kind of going on this tour, I've kind of pre-mapped out some inventory to look at to help you understand, what price points get you X, and then really kind of move down the map so you can really say, hey, I really jive with that based on the price point, or I'm looking for something more luxury. I didn't know that there was this luxury neighborhood. So let's, start with the very tippy top, which is Jones Valley. Now, a lot of people will consider living in Jones Valley based on the fact that you're really close to Shasta Lake itself. Over here, you can kind of just see how massive Shasta Lake is. So from Jones Valley, you do have pretty immediate access to Shasta Lake itself. I will say that, Jones Valley overall can feel, mixed in properties being manufactured, mobile home, or, stick build, kind of all, crammed together. So I will say that some people don't like that lifestyle, even though they get close to Shasta Lake itself. And other people are like, hey, I have a certain budget and this is what I can work with. So you're really going to see prices in this area of Jones Valley being 250 all the way maybe to the tail end of 300 if you get a bigger house, but overall 250, 260. So to kind of like start this is a listing that is currently on the market. It's listed by Neat Moulter over at EXP. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. It's 1144 square feet. I've personally been through this house. Some comments I'll say about the house is, it has a great front yard, very small backyard. So a lot of your usage of what you could do is going to be in the front yard. And again, some people, want a little bit more space. This is a great house for basically 259, 260 essentially. But for some people, they're looking for something a little bit, sorry, my computer's not loading it. Sometimes that Jones Valley, lifestyle can really kind of become more congested and people just don't like living up there. But overall, you're going to kind of see, sorry, y'all, I don't know why my, thing, there we go. So you can kind of see the backyard's pretty small. And then you kind of have neighbors butt up to you really close. And that's just kind of Jones Valley itself. Now there's other parts of Jones Valley, but this is kind of a very common one that people will attract to just because of price point. Now, as we move down from Jones Valley, this is kind of Bear Mountain Deer Creek Road. Now this is this kind of gets into very high fire score, California Fair Plan. There's obviously some working and operating fire stations out there, but it's just a very high fire score. So the trade-off is you can typically get like a country property that has a lot to offer, but you might be paying a really premium price in fire insurance. So for example, this is one that's over on Gloria Terrace. It's $575. It's currently listed by Remax 5-star. It's a 3-2, 2196 square feet, and it's on 3 acres. Great property. Shops are huge here. Like some people are just looking for that extra space for their toys. Nice home, nothing crazy updated, but you can kind of see that 575 gets you, an opportunity out in the country, per se. It's funny, I didn't really think about the Wi-Fi as much. I thought it wouldn't be a problem, but here we are. So, anyway, you can kind of see shop is probably like the grand of them all of, attracting buyers to, see that as like a really cool cherry on top, specifically with this property. So out here, things to consider, like you are on PG&E, you are on a water district. Sometimes you will land on a well. Very common you're on septic, if not always. The Bella Vista Water District is very common out there. And then as you get up to Jones Valley, you're on the Jones Valley Water District. So there's kind of multiple water districts. Based on the fact that we've had so much rain and we're out of a drought, there hasn't really been much restriction, but there is kind of that sense of if there was to be a drought, if there was to be problems, overall, having my own rights to my well, that being it's not metered, to be able to access my water the way I want to, sometimes is what people would prefer than being on a water district, because who knows down the road when, there might be a future drought, potentially, there would be a little bit more restriction involved. So things to consider. As we come down, we start getting into the city of Redding limits. So this is kind of Tierra Oaks estate. Now, this is probably your most luxury side of the northeast side, based on the fact that it's a golf course, it's a gated community. Your price points are going to be anywhere between $850 to well over $1 million. And here in Redding, we don't really have like a massive luxury market environment, but occasionally people are looking for that higher end. They're coming from the Bay Area and they're like, I want a like and similar kind of, experience. And, what do you have luxury that I could, have a similar lifestyle to? So over here in Tierra Heights, this one is listed for $1.275. It's 5 bedrooms, 4.5 bathrooms, over 4,300 square feet. It's built in 2005, listing courtesy of Treg with Ron White. So here in Tierra Oaks Estates, you really get this like Tuscany style home. Sometimes, the homes are really updated. Sometimes they are not updated. So it's kind of like a give and take with, the idea of what somebody wants to pay luxury price wise to do all these updates. But overall, this is an HOA community. If I didn't share it already, the HOA is about $125 a month. You don't get access to the golf course. Like that's a separate fee, but you are within the golf course community. You have access to you what the HOA community brings. You have access to the clubhouse, all these different kind of perks. And a lot of people just like the gated community. Now, some things that people don't love about this neighborhood is that it is a little bit farther outside of Redding, even though you are in the city of Redding limits. Some people you'll find just don't like HOAs. They don't want to be told what to do. And other people, like I said, for the luxury price point that they're paying, you're going to have this hit and miss of some of those houses are, paying just to be in Tierra Heights, and others are paying because you're actually getting a really nice luxury home. So like I said, this house is a little over 4,300 square feet. It's 1.275. And a lot of times you'll see a lot of our luxury inventory sit a little bit longer because we have much smaller of a buyer pool. So Tierra Heights is one of the golf courses that we have here. And so that's kind of up here. Now, as we come down, there is kind of a sister golf course nearby, and that is Gold Hills. Now, the cool part about Gold Hills is that there is no HOA. So you can live on the golf course, be right outside, and, have access to the clubhouse, all these different amenities without paying the HOA. So a lot of people really like, Gold Hills for that reason. Price point, you're going to kind of see, starting out high fours. Really, you might get a little bit lucky. It'll be a smaller house all the way to 6s, 7s, maybe 8s, really just kind of depending on how grand, how big the house is. For this house, it's on Glen Eagles Court. This property is listed by Kim Downey. It's on 0.26 acres, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 25, 26. Like you can see, you literally have the golf course right outside your back door. Nice home, clean, nothing crazy updated, very traditional in some regards to some of the amenities, but a lot of people love Gold Hills for the access to the golf course and not being in the HOA. I will say some of the Gold Hills properties do have a little bit more of a limited backyard. They're sometimes not as big of a backyard or as usable, just based on the fact that, you're backing up to a golf course. So sometimes you just basically have like a deck and a view and not as much yard space. And it just kind of depends on the price point that you're willing to pay for the house and what amenities it brings. Right before Gold Hills is a 55 plus community that we've talked about before. And this is Tuscany Villas. This is a 55 plus gated community. There's currently one listed right now. It was built in 2016 for basically $450, $449. So there's one currently in Tuscany Villas that we can show you. This was built in 2016. It's listed by Scott Graham over by Real Brokerage. Like I said, it's 55 plus. Your HOA a month is going to be $91. So not really a terribly high HOA premium. A lot of these homes have a lot of attraction to them because they don't feel like your typical older style 55 plus neighborhood that we have in other parts of Redding. It kind of feels a little bit more Tuscany, hence the name. It feels a little bit more updated, like a little bit of a more upscale lifestyle. You're close to the golf course, and kind of in regards to this northeast side specifically, these properties over in Tuscany, as well as like Gold Hills, or even if you want to say Tierra Heights, is you're pretty close to the I-5. So you literally can go Oasis Road down, and then you catch the I-5, and then you're pretty much right downtown to Trader Joe's, Sprouts, Costco, all these things. So yes, you're on the outskirts of Redding. Some people are going to get used to a certain distance and they'll say it's a little bit farther, but overall you're probably like 10 minutes from downtown. And so a lot of people like that little bit outskirts, but close proximity. Now, as we move down, this has kind of become a very popular area. So we have Shasta College over here. So this is our community college. So a lot of people, like living out over here or being close to Shasta College, or if you're an investor, you like to be near the Shasta College, just for rental purposes. In previous episodes, when we talked about the development of what's happening in Redding, we talked about the massive Bethel church that's being built right here. So a lot of people that attend Bethel, which is a mega church here in our area, a lot of people like to be near and by this area based on the fact of being close to the school, being close to church. And so it kind of becomes a very desirable area just for the access point. And some people just don't want the traffic and Shasta College and eventually Bethel. Right now, Bethel is over here, and so they're moving their facility over here. So it's kind of like right in the same realm. So we're going to explore kind of East Ridge Estates. These properties can range anywhere between 450 all the way to $1 million, depending on if you're in land. And a lot of people moving to our area, if they're in that higher end price point, want to be in the city of Redding on a little bit of land, have their privacy, and still kind of experience the luxury amenities that a higher end home would have. But like I said, be in the city of Redding limits for the sake of being on REU. So this is actually one of our listings. It's over on Hope Lane. It's 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. You know, it has a pool. It's on almost 2 acres. You know, great piece of property. You know, a little bit more of like that typical farmhouse, you know, style. And so it kind of just gives a different, you know, setting for some people that are looking for something maybe a little bit more elevated, farm style, like I said, but has that square footage. So here on Hope Lane in the, you know, East Ridge kind of estates area, you'll have these properties that sit a little bit more on land, and a lot of people desire that. If you go more closer to the actual neighborhood itself, you're gonna have those houses that are like 475 to 525 kind of range. Now, if that area is like, okay, that sounds nice, but that's really not my price point, you know, there's obviously so many neighborhoods and little neighborhoods we can talk about, but Country Oaks subdivision is probably a secondary runner-up that people will kind of choose if they want to be over nearby, you know, this kind of neighborhood, but they can't afford it. So this property is $375. It's listed by Josh Barker Real Estate. It's 3 bedrooms, 2.5, almost 1,700 square feet, built in 1989. A lot of things that I find here in Country Oaks is, you know, some of the properties will come updated. A lot of them will just kind of be that traditional 1990s house where you have, you know, oak cabinets, you know, outdated fixtures, or, you know, these have been a little bit more updated for like the traditional look, but overall it's kind of like a very standard, you know, floor plan, nothing fancy. So it kind of allows that person to have a little bit more of an entry price point in, that being, you know, $375. This kind of wraps up this part, you know, that kind of cuts us off on $299. Now, as we kind of creep down into a little bit lower, this is kind of where it gets a little bit more subdivision and less acreage, if you want to say. We've talked a lot about, we did a video tour on Hacienda Heights, Alder Creek, College, Highlands, Simpson College is here. So on the east side, if you're, you know, a professor, a teaching professional, you're going to kind of see, you know, a lot of people migrate to the east side for just a little bit of the slower life pace, the access and amenities to schools, the colleges, the universities, etc. So we won't kind of hone in on a ton of them just because there's a lot of, you know, neighborhoods, and we've kind of touched already, you know, a little bit on these neighborhoods. If you're, again, somebody who's looking to retire to Redding, looking for that 55 plus community, the Vineyards is a fantastic place. So many people try to fight to be in that neighborhood, and there's no, you know, real available options right now, but it's about 120. It's gated. There's walking trails. There's, you know, ponds. It's just a very well thought out 55 plus community. As we come out of kind of that area and come down Shasta View is a pretty main strip here on the east side. It connects to a lot of things. You'll have Alder Creek, like we talked about. This area is kind of a little bit newer. The one that I was going to go over is built in 2005. It's listed by Young & Company, Casa Biena Street. Anyway, a lot of these houses that you're going to see in this neighborhood, some would say cookie cutter, very straightforward, kind of similar layout, similar color scheme, similar, you know, kind of appearance outward. And so if you're kind of like one of those people that are like, hey, I like a newer look, I don't really want charm and character, you know, this works for me, you know, Alder Creek is a great neighborhood. Across from it, College Highlands kind of can have a like and similar, you know, price point as well. And then the Hacienda kind of area, Hacienda area can kind of have then that more like 425, 450 price point. Some a little bit more of that starter price point if you're really wanting to be in that neighborhood. The beautiful part about this kind of like cluster of homes is we got Lima Ranch. We've talked a lot about this. This is the McConnell. Oh, wow. We're going crazy. This is the McConnell Foundation. It's a walking preserve, just a beautiful, beautiful area. And a lot of people, you know, come out here, walk. And if you're like in this neighborhood, you literally have just backyard access to the trails, which makes it such a huge perk. As we kind of venture a little bit to the left, we have different things like Sprouts, Chick-fil-A, Trader Joe's. So people living off Churn Creek really like the access to amenities over here. Overall, there's a couple neighborhoods that really just kind of stand out. You know, we've talked about Highland park already. You can catch it on a previous episode, just kind of going in depth about it. But if you're somebody who's like, hey, I'm really kind of looking for an investment property, or maybe I'm just looking for a simpler lifestyle, there's a handful of townhomes here on Mission de Oro, as well as Tanglewood. Tanglewood is going to be a little bit of a higher investment area, just based on the fact that it has a pool, it has a little bit more amenities. So that HOA is roughly $240 a month. And then if you were to kind of hang out over on the Mission de Oro side, that is going to be a little bit cheaper, maybe about like 60 bucks or whatnot. Obviously, you know, very townhouse, you know, kind of well-kept, private. Price is $330. You know, a lot of these townhomes are 2 stories. So sometimes, you know, you'll see the ones that are sitting longer because, you know, somebody's looking for a master downstairs versus upstairs. So, you know, there's kind of some give and take in regards to that. But as you can see, you know, nice, you know, well-kept home that's currently on the market, you know, for $330. Obviously your con is, you know, if you don't want the HOA is going to be $240. Your backyard's pretty small and limited. And it kind of, you know, you're nearby Highland, you know, park, which is a community park. This is not part of the HOA. This is if you were to live over off of Mission de Oro, back in that subdivision, you'll have access to this community park, which is kind of cool. The other, like I said, the other thing is you can obviously access over on Mission de Oro. Those are a little bit newer. Those are going to kind of range between $350 and $375 for like a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,700 square feet. So overall, this is kind of like a very popular neighborhood, more so for investing, and then 2, just for like an entry price point. Now, if again, you're kind of like, this is all great, but like my price point is closer to like $350, $375, Faith, like, and I don't want to be in a condo. Well, you're going to love Quail Ridge. Now, this is off of Boulder Creek. So Boulder Creek is a school here. So this is kind of like Quail Ridge, very, very popular neighborhood. Your price range, like I said, is going to be $350, $375, kind of depending on the amenities. It might be a little bit higher depending on if the house is, you know, newer. You're not really going to see anything squeak over $400,000 just because most stuff sells, you know, in that mid 300 range. So for example, this is one over on Springer. It's listed by Jesse Eline. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1,432 square feet, built in 1988. You know, nice updated kitchen. I will say these floor plans are very, very similar. So one house on Springer is going to look like the next house on Springer. Not much really changes except for like updates and improvements. So really, honestly, super clean house overall. Nothing super fancy in regards to the backyard, but that price point is basically, you know, $374, $900. So very popular neighborhood. You know, definitely gets a lot of attention when it comes on the market based on, is it a good price that the consumer thinks for what it offers. Now, if we kind of move over to the right-hand side, you're going to also hit a very popular neighborhood. So if I was, you know, bringing somebody into the world of Redding, and what neighborhood would you pick if you were kind of in the 350, 375, under 400 range, you're probably going to land somewhere here over off of Quail Ridge, or you're going to land somewhere off of Ravenwood or Candlewood Estates. Pretty easy houses to just kind of give, you know, a really easy inventory of price range, you know, like I said, from $350 to $399. You know, sometimes these price points do go up a little bit higher if you were to look at it price per square foot. I've seen kind of areas off of Trumpet and Tropicana in the Ravenwood Estates where it feels like you're paying so much for a 1,300 square foot house, but then you look over on other properties and, you know, it's a bigger square footage and the price seems to be a little bit down. And I'll say, you know, in our area, when the house is a little bit smaller, 1,300 square feet, I don't really like base opinion of value off of price per square foot. Some people do, but you will see kind of like that higher end price per square foot here in Ravenwood, just because it's an entry level price. You're near Lima Ranch. You're in a great part of the northeast side of Redding. And so a lot of people like to be in it. So to kind of look at that option, this is an option over off of Candlewood. This is listed by Ben Jennings. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,773 square feet, you know, listed for basically $400,000. You know, nice updates. There could be, you know, some improvements, you know, in regards to if you wanted to update, you know, bathrooms or whatnot. I will say a lot of times for the Candlewood Drive area, and kind of depending on where exactly you choose in this neighborhood, you have to be really mindful of where you back up to. So if you back up to Shasta View, you're definitely going to have road noise. It's not terrible, but for some people that just want peace and quiet, this is going to be a pretty constant street. And so So like, for example, this house that's on the market backs up to Shasta View. So you're going to have kind of like that traffic noise going. Again, some people care, some people don't, but it's just something to know. All right, as we wrap up this tour, like I said, you know, there's other country properties that we could kind of explore that are right before you get to Bella Vista, but for the sake of the length of this video, and probably most likely what you're possibly desiring to see, we're gonna end over off of the Shasta View Gardens. Now, very, very heavy rental area. I would say majority of these properties sell to investors. You might have, you know, some people along Tuscany Way that aren't so condensed in it being, you know, a single family residence and kind of almost feels like a condo townhouse. You know, so a lot of people will buy these for the sake of, you know, investments. You are so close to Simpson, Bethel Church, Shasta College. It's a great investment. And so a lot of people will, you know, consider this option. So if you were an investor or somebody who's like, I kind of like that lifestyle, super simple. As you can kind of see, they're all kind of pretty jammed together. There is going to be that rare occasion that you're going to get one of the properties over off of Tuscany Way. And those are, you know, basically kind of a little bit more structured of like some space that it feels a little bit more uniform versus kind of congestion of, you know, a bunch of townhouses, well, town-like houses. So looking at this property, you can kind of see like it's a little bit congested. You obviously are nearby other, you know, houses. It's technically not a townhouse if it's not, you know, adjoining to each other. But essentially it feels like a townhouse. This is 3 bedrooms, 2 bathroom, a little close to 1,400 square feet. It's $337,500. The HOA here is $100 a month, and this is listed by Treg. Cool part about this kind of subdivision, like I said, it's really investor heavy for rentals. Backyards are pretty simple, but you do have access to like a park area for kind of some space. So overall, like this is kind of in my regards of how I could simplify certain areas, maybe based off a price point. Maybe if you're looking for something a little bit more luxury, you want some more country and space. Like I said, if you're looking to stay more country and you're looking for kind of some more privacy and acreage and kind of just have that opportunity and not pay a bunch of money, especially if you're to like venture to Palisadro or the west side, you know, you're going to kind of look at options over in Bear Mountain Road, or you're going to kind of look at options over here a little bit outside of the Bella Vista region. You know, you might creep into the Bella Vista region. Overall, this is Northeast Redding. I hope that this kind of walkthrough tour was helpful for you, just more to see what options are out there. What does inventory look like here in Redding? I mean, we have tons of inventory right now just based on the market that we're in right now. You know, properties are sitting a lot longer. There's just a lot of options for buyers. So this is obviously a fraction of, you know, ideas and concepts of, you know, what these neighborhoods, you know, represent. I'm not saying every house in this neighborhood is going to look like this, but you can kind of get a little bit of a feel, you know, price point wise, style, you know, lifestyle, what each neighborhood could offer. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Comment below if you've explored Redding or you're thinking about exploring Redding, maybe what your price point is, maybe what is important to you, so I can, you know, help you find that place, especially if Northeast Redding is where you want to be. But future videos, we are going to kind of continue on sharing the northwest side, you know, moving down to the southwest side, all that. So as you come here to our area, you might feel like a little bit more of a sense of direction of what do I want to focus on based on what's important to me. So as always, thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of Rooted in Redding, where we not only help you find a home, but a community to thrive in. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and comment below, like I said, your thoughts. And as always, we will catch you next week.